Over 2,500 years ago, God, through the prophet Zechariah, said, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about. And folks, people have undoubtedly lost their sobriety when it comes to Jerusalem, and things are getting worse. Let me just say this, Monkey, before we jump on this conversation, because this conversation is an important one, and I think we're going to really enjoy this. When I first started teaching the Bible, that's north of 30 years ago, we would go literally insane if we got more than 2 stories, significant news stories, out of Jerusalem a year.
Yeah.
If one of those stories had something to do with the Temple Mount, my goodness, it was the roll your eyes in the back of your head, can't control yourself, super excited, this is amazing, this is groundbreaking, this is pretty incredible. Now, we would be shocked if we did not get one story on the Temple Mount every 10 minutes.
Yes.
I mean, that's how much things have changed.
It is significantly increased. I mean, that's way, way more. Even since I started it 3 years ago, it has, it's increased.
Monkey, I'm telling you right now, bro, it's beyond exponential. Look, there's a lot of people that will hear the theology that I teach. They'll listen to my eschatological perspective. That means my view on end times, and will oftentimes debate that. We get lots of people online that say, we're not leaving after before the tribulation. I hear that a lot, right?
Right.
But for anybody that disagrees with my eschatology, you're fine to do that. There's a lot of really wonderful people that don't see things the same way. And I would certainly never, look down on a person for thinking that way or any of that. That's not my issue. Yeah. But if you do have a different point of view on eschatology and you say Israel doesn't exist, or we're figurative Israel, or, we're some sort of a metaphorical, the church is a spiritual Israel, whatever, you can't continue to say that when you look around the world and see what exists.
No.
It's impossible.
Yeah, it really is. Especially, I mean, just given the fact that we have seen some things that are the major milestone aspects of Israel and the Bible and end time prophecy in just the last 5 years there's no fuzz on it anymore. Like, it's as much or as significant as, the stand-up of Israel as a nation in 1948, or the 6-Day War, or actually more than the 6-Day War. You're talking Daniel 9:27, Ezekiel 38. These are the things that there is, in order for those things to come into fruition, it's 100% the hand of God. It's the only way that this can even happen, because man's hearts are too hardened to be able to accomplish all of this and pull it off. It's the only way. It is Isaiah 55:11, right? All things go according to God's will, right? His word goes out and does not return void. And that's exactly what we are seeing today. So everything that we do with either ill intent or good intent is always going towards the will of God.
Bro, it's so true. And I think what's unique and perhaps more remarkable than anything I can possibly imagine myself is the sovereignty of God, right? Like how sovereign his hand is, and how much he, understands things that we will never understand. To me, it's beyond our finding out. Being able to put that stuff together is like astoundingly cool. Yeah. Because like I look at, oftentimes I find myself in a position where I see these stories and you begin to realize, like, wow, I can't believe it happened like that. Like, I never expected that, right? I'll give you an example of this. When we look at MBS, when he first came across the pipe, I remember telling some of the people that I had regular discussions with about him, he's not going to last long. The guy's a flash in the pan. There's no way you're going to have a guy that seems to have sympathetic causes for Western, or sympathetic attributes to Western causes, that's going to end up lasting in the royal family. Yet now you look at it and it feels as though the royal family actually placed him there for the whole purpose of appealing to Western relations. And maybe I'm wrong about this, but Monkey, that's the way it's feeling right now. And I'm mind boggled by it.
Oh, it is. It's absolutely amazing. What you're talking about, your whole subject it's the Zechariah 12, right?
Yes.
The cup of trembling. It depends on what Bible verse or version you're looking at, right? If I go to the New King James Version, it's cup of drunkenness. If I go to NIV, it's they use a different word. So I don't know what the root word is there for the trembling or drunkenness or whatever. It'd be really interesting to see what that root word actually means. What is the crux of that word?
So trembling, drunkenness, they all in essence mean the same thing. When you read the King James Elizabethan English, that passage implies, well, let me read it. How about I read it first? So it says this in Zechariah 12:1. It says, the burden of the word of the Lord for Israel, saith the Lord, which stretcheth forth the heavens and layeth the foundations of the earth, and formeth the spirit of man within him. Behold, he says, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about when they shall be in the siege, both against Judah and Jerusalem. And in that day I will make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people, and all that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces, though all the people of the earth be gathered together against it. In that day, saith the Lord, I will smite every horse with astonishment, and his rider with madness, and I will open up my eyes upon the house of Judah, and I will smite every horse of the people with blindness. And he goes on talking about the governors of Judah and so on and so forth. So the idea here is that even the discussion of Jerusalem is going to be an intoxicating variable to people. In other words, Jerusalem, the subject of Jerusalem is in essence, it's going to make people intoxicated and stupefied, if that kind of makes sense, right? In other words, all of the people that surround Jerusalem are going to be made confused by God. They're gonna be made like literally, like, when someone gets drunk. You ever heard that phrase, stupid drunk? That's exactly what's going on here. You're going to see that type of situation, right? And it's interesting because, look, when you see people make a sort of a stride for something, they get blind about everything else. Like, you understand what I mean when I say that? Like, people say this all the time. You want something bad enough, you're going to go get it, right? And the way that I can draw this picture, and it'll help everybody understand the Zechariah passage, is let's say you have a guy who has a problem with, sex addiction, okay? And he's driving down the road, and he sees what he perceives to be an absolutely drop-dead gorgeous woman, who's on the side of the road, who appears to be in big trouble. She's got the hood of her car open. She looks a little puzzled, like she's trying to figure out how to fix the car, and she looks a little kind of lame. Well, this guy is going to look at her, and he's going to see an opportunity to be able to indulge his flesh. So what, in essence, he does is he gets off his car, he parks his car off the side of the road, he walks up to this girl that he considers to be absolutely drop-dead gorgeous, and what he doesn't realize is the level of intoxication that he has by the fact that he is mesmerized by her beauty has caused him to be blind over the fact that there are 3 guys that are waiting in the bushes to overtake him, kill him, and take all of his stuff, right? It's the same thing. So the whole idea is this. People are going to be so profoundly hypnotized by Jerusalem. There's going to be such little sobriety as it relates to their view of Jerusalem that eventually as they go forward or they make moves based upon it, it's going to bring people to that place of complete judgment because God will use that against them. And by the way, we're seeing evidence of this everywhere, right? We're watching, here's the number one way to get yourself just kicked in seconds, right? Just a very quick way to get kicked off the international scene is put your embassy in Jerusalem, right? Or start talking about Jerusalem. Jerusalem being the place of, the ancient capital of Israel. Dare you to say that in a place that is not amicable towards Israel, which is most places, right? The whole idea here is that there's going to be this open and avid pursuit of Jerusalem, right? And the reality of it is that it's going to be the source of a lot of turmoil. It's going to be the source of a lot of conflict. As a matter of fact, that's why we are commanded by God to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Remember in the Psalms, Psalm 122, I think, is what says that. Hey, pray for the peace of Jerusalem, right? And it's interesting because the Bible also tells us that Jerusalem is going to be the place that God, in essence, is going to set himself up forever. He's going to set his name up forever. We see that, right? And he even gives us a promise in the Psalms that he's going to protect Jerusalem. So this is why it's becoming a cup of trembling, because these people are going to go and they're going to drink that cup and they're going to become intoxicated by it, right? And then when he talks about Jerusalem being a heavy stone for all the people, basically it means that all of these, like you think about it, all these burdens that come as a result of their intoxication for Jerusalem is going to be something that's going to backfire on them. It's going to be the tool that destroys them. And if you stop for a moment and examine what's happening with the city of Jerusalem right now, you see it, right? I mean, think about this. The application to Zechariah chapter 12 is specifically geared towards probably Armageddon, right? That last day where they all come against the Lord and they go to fight him, in essence, right there, and it becomes that place where they all get crushed. But the bigger application, when I say the bigger application or the more generalized application, is Jerusalem's going to be a stumbling block and always has been, right? And that's what we're seeing right now. It all centers around Jerusalem.
There's so many different things that are happening that tie to that. For example, we just talked about the fact that you had one of the guys from Israel go over, I think it was Cohen, right, that went to Bahrain and basically put a mezuzah on the outside of the new embassy in Bahrain, which is unheard of that they would have an embassy there. And the fact that you've got all these other countries that have in essence, you've got so there's like 85 countries' embassies in Israel itself, but in Jerusalem, there's only like 6, something like that. So
that's right.
But they are increasing rapidly. There's a waiting list to get in there to put in their embassy. And that all came after Trump. And that's the interesting piece, as did the Abraham Accords. I mean, that's a Trump brainchild. And it's actually brilliant when you think about the fact that this it ties back to Abram, and it ties back to Sarah, and it ties back to his handmaiden, right? So you've got Isaac, who was born, and then you have Ishmael, and Ishmael was born from the maid, right? From his slave,
from Hagar,
right? And so when you say the Abraham Accords, then it takes it to the next level, because there is a major separation. The whole bloodline of Islam comes out of Ishmael, and the bloodline for Jesus comes out of Isaac. And so in order to bring that Abraham Accord together, it goes to Abraham and underneath that one house. And so this is really, really crazy, because the Saudis are talking about taking over the Temple Mount and giving it to the Jews to build their temple. And they're talking, this is going to be the mother of all peace deals that's getting ready to come in. And so to take it into the Bible, what the Bible says is that this Antichrist is going to come in to that location. He's going to basically confirm or make stronger a covenant. That means he's making something that already exists. And so we see this covenant getting ready to go into play. And I mean, our exit has got to be so close. It has to be.
Yeah, amen to that. And this thing with MBS is a lot more significant than most people who don't know the geopolitics of the region could even begin to imagine. If you know the geopolitics of the region, it's going to make perfect sense to you, especially if you have an acclamation where you were maybe born there or raised there, or you have a background in that. It's going to make a lot of sense. The whole idea of the kingdom of Saudi Arabia being sympathetic towards any Israeli cause is something that's absolutely ridiculous. And Saudi Arabia, let me just say this for the record. Saudi Arabia could have claimed the right at the time of the war in the 60s, right? When that had happened, they could have claimed the right to be able to be the individuals that manage a Temple Mount. It would have been no problem for them. The issue here is that they would not have wanted to be able to have the type of amicable relationship necessary with Israel in order to do so. Saudi Arabia, people don't get this. Saudi Arabia has spent a lot of time funding these causes against Israel.
Yes.
This is something that happened, from many, many, many years ago. Now, when Saudi Arabia began to see the benefit of actually being friendly with Israel, especially when they started positioning themselves in a way to defend against the interests of Iran, they begin to realize that it's a win-win situation. And the funny thing about it is the type of pivoting that has taken place in order for Saudi Arabia to recognize their need to be close to Israel is remarkable. They both find a commonality in their enemies. They find a commonality in the fact that they are sick of the influence of Iranian proxies. In the case of Saudi Arabia, it's the Yemenis Houthis, and in the case of Israel, it's not just Hezbollah, but believe it or not, even though they're Sunni, Hamas. They're both functioning as active proxies of Iran. So you've got Saudi Arabia and you've got Israel both saying, we have a common interest, and our common interest is our common enemy. Yeah. And so now when MBS is basically saying, I want to be able to have the right to be the guardian over the Temple Mount, look, Jordan might fight it a little bit, and Jordan is already fighting it, but you have to keep in mind, they're fighting it only because of the interests of the Waqf, right? If you really think about it, they're going to eventually let it go because they understand that Jerusalem is indeed a cup of trembling. And the intoxication that comes from the variable associated by having to produce some kind of a functional security mechanism that keeps everybody at bay on the Temple Mount is not worth it to them. It's not worth it to them. It's not worth, heck, it might not even be worth it to the Russians. It's a powerful influencing variable. It's pretty amazing when you think about it, bro.